Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all to the National Motor Museum Collection Centre here at Bewley this evening for what we're hoping is going to be a really exciting and interesting and thought-provoking evening of motoring-related chat. I'm John Murden, I'm Chief Executive of the National Motor Museum Trust, and I've got a few little duties and parish notices before we get to the main event. It's great to see so many people here, so thank you all to our friends and our Bewley 100 members and anybody else, the general public who's joined us. It's always great to have friends, old and new, joining us here at Bewley. The fire evacuation procedure is as per usual, so I'll do my best hostess on a plane manoeuvre. The exits are here and here, and one at the back. It's the meet exactly just like that. And the muster point is out the front of visitor reception. There are no tests planned, so if it goes off, we'll assume it's for real. It's a real fire. There are still a few tickets left for our remaining transport talk on the 6th of April, and they can be booked online. That's the public premiere of the film Mary Motorcycle, about Mary Seaver's journey to India on a BSA Bantam. She reached India and then kept going, because why not? She was the first British woman to ride solo all around the world, so we've not got many tickets left now. They are selling really well, so please get your ticket if you haven't already got one. And then for some future dates for your diary, the autumn season of talks will start on the 19th of October when we're joined by Anthony Coulis from the National Railway Museum. He's going to talk about restoring the Flying Scotsman, comparing the work that they're doing or did with that locomotive to the work that we're doing with the Sunbeam 1000 project. On 23rd of November, Andy Saunders, the renowned car modifier, will be coming to talk about his life as the automotive alchemist. And then finally, on the 14th of December, Christopher McGowan, our former Chair of Trustees and President of the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, is going to join us to talk about a motoring life. Tickets for those dates will be available to purchase nearer the time, so please keep an eye out on the Bewley website and on the National Motor Museum Trust website. For those of you who aren't aware, the raffle car prize this year, which you can see down at the museum, is a 1972 MGB GT in British Racing Green. It's a heritage reshell with a rebuilt engine, gearbox and back axle and suspension. I haven't driven it, it drives beautifully. It's as close to a brand new MGB GT as you could get. The raffle tickets are available this evening. See Teresa at the interval or afterwards, but the car also comes with a year's free insurance, courtesy of our friends at Haggerty, a year's breakdown cover and a year's servicing. So a classic car for a year for free, and then it's yours to keep. What better prize could you want for £2? And all proceeds are going to help the museum, particularly towards the restoration of the Sunbeam. So, without any further ado, I'll introduce the guests for this evening, who I hope are waiting in the wings. We're joined by... First of all, would you put your hands together to welcome Peter Greaves, motoring content creator and co-host of the Drive Talk podcast, who you might better know as Petrol Ped. I'm waiting for the hand to come out. Here he is. And secondly, racing driver, motoring journalist and TV presenter Tiff Needell.
Was that Tiffany Dell?
No.
Or Tiff
Needell.
Don't you start.
See, I was good. I was good.
Look. The Tiff does not come from Tiffany, all right?
Well, let's start there. Where does it come from,
The
mate?
Tiff comes from Timothy.
Obviously.
It was just that when I was naught and my brother was 3, he couldn't say Timothy, and he said Tiff of a money. So I got called Tiff. But unfortunately, I now have 2 silly names, because if you say Tiff Needell quickly, you end up saying Tiffany Dell. So I get booked into many hotels as Miss Tiff Annie Dell. But anyway, I've lived with it. It's all right. I'm happy with it.
So that's good. You've got my first question out of the way straight away. We've just had a lovely dinner, and Tiff's had selfies at the bar. He signed beer mats for all of the kitchen team and the lovely lady who waited on us and got us our table. So,
A great pleasure.
yeah.
Butler's hard for a nice meal.
Well, good evening, gents and ladies. Thank you for coming tonight. I guess I don't think I need to introduce him so much, but maybe I need to introduce me briefly and why I'm here and you aren't just listening to Tiff.
You're my mate, Ped.
I know, mate, and that's the bit that's really weird because I grew up watching you on like Top Gear and Fifth Gear and stuff. So I'm an automotive YouTuber. That is a thing. You can actually kind of say that's what you do for a living now, which is weird.
Can't believe that.
I know. And I've been doing it about 8 years now. And I first, I think the first time I ever met Tiff was at Goodwood. I think it might have been a members meeting dinner. And we sat on the same table and I was trying to persuade you to do YouTube.
You were, I know. I should have done. I should have followed his advice.
And then you and a good mutual friend of ours, Paul Woodman, then started to do a lot of YouTube stuff on Love Cars, and that then turned into a TV show, which I think we'll talk about a bit later on. And I've been very lucky to have done a couple of films with Tiff, and that was a very surreal day when you're suddenly on a shoot with someone who you've kind of grown up watching on the telly box, and I now like to think of us as friends, and we have a good bit of banter together. So Tiff asked if I'd host this evening and kind of walk you through the highlights and maybe some lowlights of Tiff's career. No, there was no lowlights of your career.
No, at all.
No, not at all. So the plan is we've got till about 8 o'clock. And I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Tiff and ask some questions and find out some things and hopefully have delve into your career as one of the eminent motoring journalists of our generation.
I'm a racing driver. I don't want to be a journalist. I'm a racing
the racing
driver.
driver bit.
Racing driver.
And we're going to do that till about 8 o'clock. And then, really importantly, we're going to go to the bar and have a drink. And then we're going to come back in and we're going to do some Q&A and we'll open the floor up to you guys and you can ask questions as you wish. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. Okay, I'd love to know, so because I kind of know, obviously I know the answers to some of the questions I'm going to ask, but I'd love to know how you got into racing, and I'd love for you to tell us the story of your first ever racing car, because
that's a while ago. I think the story starts actually, there's a car right outside these doors which are part of my beginnings.
Yeah.
Because my dad was a huge racing enthusiast. He went to Brooklands before the war. He was working in Weybridge, Surrey, as designing motor torpedo boats. So he couldn't go and work and be in the war. He was doing that. But he discovered Brooklands and he watched these huge aero racers thundering around the bankings. And my dad fell in love with motorsport. Then after the war in the 1950s, when I was born in the early 1950s, Goodwood, of course, opened up to replace Brooklands, which, of course, didn't hold any more racing after the war. So he took me down to Goodwood, and that's where I was about, as soon as I could walk, about age 4 or 5, I crawled up the banking at the corner coming out of the chicane and saw these huge, colourful, noisy, smelly machines being wrestled round the corners by these heroes. And all I wanted to be was a racing driver. That was it. I just loved the sport from the word go. But we were growing up in Weybridge, Surrey, and everybody thinks I was a kid with a silver spoon in my mouth, but we were on the wrong side of the railway line in Weybridge, Surrey, in a rented flat. So money was never there for me to go racing. And in fact, that Austin 7 is what brought the conversation to me, because in the cars we owned, the family, were Austin 7 Rubies. So mid-1950s, they were like 20-year-old, a second-hand for £10, I think my mum bought them for. We went to Goodwood in an Austin 7 Ruby, and seeing the size of that car out there now, I can't believe I sat in the back of one of those and went anywhere. But I remember when we got to the beginning of the South Downs, we had to go up the hill to get to Goodwood. We had to stop the car, open the water, fill the water up before we attempted to climb up the hill to get to Goodwood to watch the motor racing. So that was my past. I just wanted to be a racing driver. I watched the likes of, Graham Hill, and Jim Clark was my huge hero, racing round and round, and that's what I wanted to be, a racing driver. But there was no family money. It wasn't going to happen. In the summer of 1969, I left school to go to university to be a civil engineer, to do a 5-year sandwich degree course in civil engineering, and that's where I was going to be. But in 1971, I entered a magazine competition run by Autosport magazine, and it was to win a Formula Ford racing car. And somehow I won this car in a magazine competition. And all of a sudden I was a civil engineer 5 days a week and a mechanic in my little garage 5 nights a week. And every weekend for 5 years I was a racing driver, a mechanic and a van driver every weekend, and worked my way to the top of the single-seater ladder and got offered a professional drive. So it was a dream come true that was a miracle to me. And I'll never forget it. And those days, Formula Ford was this great formula in the 1970s where on a low budget you could run the car yourself, you could be your own mechanic and win races. And that's what I managed to do. So my Morris 1000 Traveller towed my racing car for the first season of racing, and that's how I got going.
Now, if you want, you did a video with Paul on Love Cars.
Yeah, on Love Cars.
And it's a proper tearjerker, and because they go back and you
reenact it.
They got the original car. You've now got that car, right? Yeah.
I sold the car that I won in 1970. I raced for 2 years and bashed and crashed it and smashed it and learning the ropes. I actually sold it to Austria. And I thought I'd never see it again, but in about 2010, someone said, "I've bought your car back from Austria." And I said, "You can't have it, it's a wreck." But it had the same chassis number, the same gear, but it's actually bought back the car that I won in that magazine competition. It's now in my garage. I've repainted it back as to where it was when I won it. And I raced it again in historic Formula Ford and actually won a race in it again. In fact, it's a great pub answer that, because my first ever race win was in that Lotus 69F at Thruxton in 1972. And in about 2014, I won a race at Thruxton in the same car with the same driver, which must be some sort of...
That's hobby.
But anyway, so this film me quick. So when in 1971, when I won this car and had my Morris 1000, I didn't have a camera. I certainly didn't have a phone with a camera on it. So I had no photos of the Morris 1000 towing this dream car that I won in a magazine competition. So luckily I managed to borrow a exactly looking green Morris 1000 Traveller. I borrowed a trailer. I now had the car. We put the car back on the trailer for an item on Love Cars. So please, any video you ever watch on YouTube, if you've never been to YouTube before, please go to YouTube, Love Cars, and watch that story, because it brings tears to my eyes every time I see it again, because it replicates me as a 19-year-old kid towing a dream racing car behind my Morris 1000 Traveller.
Yeah, it's a mega video. And when you finish watching that, come over to my channel.
No, forget that.
So Formula Ford, you're very successful in Formula Ford.
Yeah.
And then I guess the first bit of your motorsport journey I want to talk about really is Formula One.
Yeah.
And I know it's not. It was a short-lived Formula One career, but at least you have a Formula One career, which is what most.
I got to the top of Everest.
Everybody wants to be a Formula One driver, but so. Tell us a little bit about that. I'd love to know a bit about the first time you sat in a Formula One car, your first test, and just what that was like. Because I think for so many racing drivers, that is the pinnacle of their ambition.
Yeah, to get to Formula One.
It must have been epic.
It meant so much. I mean, it went back, because when I'm in the end of the Formula Ford series, I was voted the most promising young British driver in 1976 and given an award by James Hunt. And I was the bee's knees. I got a professional drive in Formula 3, which from Unipart. So I retired from being a civil engineer when I was about 25 years old and did Formula 3 professionally. And then I got a scholarship to drive in the British Formula 1 Championship. Important scholarship, because it was sponsored by Durex.
Hey, you don't want to come off the circuit there, do you?
Less of the laughter. Because they were just coming out of the closet and doing a bit of advertising, and they sponsored this Formula 1 car. It was the British Formula 1 Championship, not the World Championship. And it was a scholarship specifically intended for up-and-coming young drivers.
Of course, mate. Yeah.
They haven't got that one at all.
Sorry.
Durex.
My mind was too far ahead of that one. Keep going.
So that got me driving in a Formula 1 car, and it was driving the Durex scholarship car in 1979 that caught the attention of the team manager. I got this break to drive in Formula 1 with the Ensign team. It was all very last minute. It was sadly because in those days you used to get a break as a young driver when another driver got injured. And it was Clay Regazzoni, the brilliant Italian racing driver, that had an awful crash at Long Beach and broke his back, and he couldn't race again. And this was a chance for many young drivers, and luckily I got the chance to drive in that car. It was an Ensign one-car team. Literally, I was at a Formula 2 race trying to get a Formula 2 drive because I had no drive that year. And then all of a sudden the phone rang and I got the call to come and be in that Ensign at the Belgian Grand Prix in 1980. Sadly, I knew they actually wanted another driver, which pisses you off a bit, to be honest. Because Jan Lammers, the Dutch driver, he'd qualified 4th at Long Beach in the race that Regazzoni crashed at. He was a sensation of Long Beach, but he was contracted to another team until the other team's injured driver got better. That's the way it worked in those days. Injured drivers, you kept on recycling. So I did the 1980 Belgian Grand Prix in the Ensign. And in those days, like 30 cars used to turn up for every race. And only the fastest 24 actually got to race. So you had to qualify to get in the race. And I qualified 23rd, which was the same place as Regazzoni had qualified at Long Beach. So I thought I did a good job. But it was a one-car team. A lot of one-car teams in those days. So there was nobody to compare me to say, I'm doing all right here. So anyway, I found myself on the back row of the grid of the 1980 Belgian Grand Prix. And sitting alongside me was none other than Emerson Fittipaldi. One of my great schoolboy heroes, me, Emerson Fittipaldi.
It's me.
So I sat there. And I still remember when the mechanics start the engine up when the 2-minute ball went and I'm sitting in the engine, my brain was complete because I'd only got the drive like 6 days before. I had half a day's testing in Donington in the car, so no testing at all. And I sat there and I actually started humming the BBC signature tune on the grid. I was going boom, da-da-boom, Emerson Fittipaldi, boom, da-da-boom, boom, Emerson Fittipaldi. And I thought it was all a dream, and it was a dream because, you know, in Formula One, even worse now, there's only 20 drivers in Formula One. So it's like going up to Mount Everest. When you think every Premier League football team in England has got a 30-player squad and multiply that by 20 teams, that's 600 players or something. They're all in the Premier League. That's just England. So you think football around the world. There's just 20 drivers, in my day, 24 that are on the top of Mount Everest. That's an incredible hard mountain to climb. So I was just it was just a dream come true that I'd made it that far. And so for 12 laps, I battled with Emerson for the honour of being last in the 1980 Belgian Grand Prix. And the bloody engine broke. A bit more R. I did get I went to the Monaco to try and qualify. So I got a second chance because Jan Lammers wasn't free to take my seat at that stage. But only the fastest 20 actually got into the race in Monaco. So 30 cars go for 20 places. And I was actually 19th on the grid. There was a wet session on the Thursday, which used to be the first qualifying, which still is in Monaco. I was 2,000th slower than some bloke called Alain Prosti or something.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Don't
of
know
him.
where. Did he get one anyway?
French guy.
Did he go better in life? I don't know.
He was all right, yeah.
Anyway.
I think he became a doctor.
Did he?
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't qualify. But nor did John Watson or Keke Rosberg. So it was a good non-qualifiers party that year. Yeah. And in fact, with Watson not making it, it's the first or the only Grand Prix between now and about 1953 that there wasn't a British driver on the grid. So we let Britain down. Me and John Watson let Britain down. I still feel guilty now. Anyway, after that, poor old Jan Lammers was free. He took my drive. He didn't qualify for like 7 Grand Prix on the trot. Couldn't even get into 24th. So I felt vindicated, but being vindicated backwards doesn't really get you anywhere, does it? Yeah. But it was just amazing. It's that one Grand Prix made such a difference to me because this watch I'm a member of the Grand Prix Drivers Club, and I so cherish this watch because there's so few of you. I mean, it's just a tiny sport. I was so appreciative of making it that far. Didn't really care after that.
And he's still referred to as F1 driver Tiff Needell to this day, mate. So that's all good. Just very while we're on the subject, because obviously I don't know if you watched the last Grand Prix with Ollie Bierman.
Yes. Oh, tears in my eyes.
I mean the parallels of your story. So he gets called up at the last minute, has one free practice session, then gets chucked into a Ferrari, and does so well.
What Ferrari is better than an Ensign.
Well, true. Yeah. I mean, but that means more pressure, I suppose. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
I was in tears because I live with people. I cry at Bambi and I cry at films because sporting achievements when the youngster makes it through. That's still, to me, what sport's all about. When you get the young kid that makes it to the top and breaks through and wins the event. And Ollie, I just stunned. I mean, just absolutely stunning. Because I do a podcast on Monday nights, Love Cars on the Grid. Monday nights, more YouTube stuff for you. And I've been promoting for about 3 years because I watch all the youngsters. I watch the young girls coming up. I'm always looking for a woman that might make it to the Grand Prix. It's such a hard task to get up to those 20 people get there. And of course, they don't get injured anymore. It's too safe, and it's slightly annoys me that drivers stay there for too long nowadays. They're in for 300 Grand Prix. Kevin Magnussen, they're great drivers. But Hulkenberg, But they just need to move on. They need to give these young drivers more chances. I mean, good as Ollie Bearman was, he's not guaranteed a place on the grid next year. And if he gets a place on the grid, it might be at a Haas or something at the back of the grid. Yeah. So it's just so hard to get there. But to watch Ollie Bearman do what he did at 18, I mean, because the pressure.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Hardest tracks with the walls everywhere, you know, the G-forces and anti-clockwise tracks, and physically it was really demanding. He did an amazing job, stunning job.
I'm not sure that was the longest ever race he'd had in his career.
Yeah.
Youngest ever British Formula One driver, youngest ever Ferrari Formula One driver. It's pretty cool, right? I mean, just amazing.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, a bit better than me, then, maybe.
Well, no, okay, so...
No, go on.
Let's move the conversation away from Formula One to something that you were quite good at, which is endurance cars.
Sports cars. I was very lucky because when the Grand Prix dream ended, as soon as you get to the top of Mount Everest, if you don't cling onto the top, you can slide down the other side very quickly. But luckily for me, in 1981, the Group C sports car regulations were beginning. This was this wonderful Group C series that ended up for about 10 years, the best sports car racing at Le Mans. So I was in at the beginning of that. So I had 10 years of racing at Le Mans. I did 14 Le Mans 24-hour races in the end. Wow. And it was a wonderful sports car form that's now been replicated. It was just been starting again. The new World Endurance Championship is really kicking off and almost going to be better to watch. It's on at Sebring now. They're still running round and round for 12 hours at Sebring. So I was lucky that I got into sports car racing that took me away from that dream of a Grand Prix drive, and so enjoyed doing Le Mans for 14 times and ending up on the podium in 1990.
Amazing.
So yeah, sports car racing took over. I was very lucky to live through that decade of Group C racing.
Jan Lammers was quite good at that as well.
Yeah, he was good at that as well. Yeah, all right. In fact, when we finished third at Le Mans, it was in a privateer Porsche. We were only beaten by the two silk-cut Jaguars, and I'm sure Jan was in one of them.
So I'd love to find out just one of the things. I'm sure many of us watch this kind of high-level motorsport and stuff, and you watch Le Mans. I've been to Le Mans, but I would love to know what it's like in the middle of the night. It's like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and it's your turn to get in the car, and you've probably been sleep deprived for a little bit, and the adrenaline's pumping. And you're going down the Le Mans Mulsanne straight, and in those days there was no chicanes in the middle, so it was just literally 230, 40 miles an hour. What's that like? Wonderful,
absolutely wonderful. Dreamland, I just loved it. I mean, it was just an epic track. I mean, all my motor racing really, because I hate some of the modern circuits, is that I raced on the tracks, because I'm a proper fan. I'm the football kid on the fences at Goodwood that managed to get on the pitch, to get on the track. So I love my sport. And so all the races I did when I was lucky enough to do, to race at Spa and to Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit or Le Mans, I'm racing where my heroes race. I'm on the same tracks. That meant so much to me that there's that heritage there, and so I'm whistling down a Mulsanne straight where all my heroes whistled down. So all the stories I'd read from before, I was living, Jim Clark, I was living Graham Hill, I was in there. And I just absolutely adored it. And it was dangerous. It was more dangerous then. It's getting safer and safer and safer. But even then, it was still a bit dangerous.
Did you have any moments?
Well, yes, because I did. On my second Le Mans, I had the rear bodywork. I was in Aston Martin Nimrod, a Group C sports car. This is the beginning of the Group C series, and the flipping rear bodywork flipped off the back, the engine cover, Group C.
Not on Mulsanne.
On Mulsanne. Oh my God. But unfortunately, attached to the rear body was the rear wing.
So it's quite an important component.
I'm glad you.
Yeah. My aerodynamics knowledge isn't quite Adrian Newey. It's good enough to know.
So in about half a second, my 200-mile-an-hour racing car turned into a 200-mile-an-hour wheelbarrow, and it just turned sharp right. Something. Woo. I did. It wasn't quite that. I had a woo for about that long.
Did you swear in your inner?
No, because the woo was only about that long.
Yeah.
As the bodywork fell off, it was and it was gone, and there was turkey sharp. I'm facing this gleaming guardrail at 200 miles an hour, thinking, well, don't really want to hit that because it won't work. So I remember putting on the opposite lock, and I managed to miss the guardrail, and the car spun the other way. And the great thing about racing, the one lesson you almost learn from this about driving on the road, is you've got to concentrate 100% on what you're doing, which is driving the car. And that's what saves racing drivers, because I'm as concentrated 100%. You're also, when you're racing, full of this wonderful drug called adrenaline, and all your senses are heightened. So as soon as anything goes wrong, the world goes into slow-mo. It's a weird thing. You go to this amazing slow motion, because you're now trying to save yourself. And you can still do things even when you're looking. So I did the opposite lock, and then I'm spinning down the road, and I'm now going backwards at about 170 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, whoa. And of course, going backwards isn't that easy at 170 miles an hour. So I did crash into the barrier on the other side of the track at about 160. I still remember the whole front of the car coming up in the air, thinking, oh, I'm in the trees, I'm gone. But it came crashing back down again, and I was spinning back down the road about 100 miles an hour with bits everywhere. And I noticed both the gull-wing doors had flown off in that first impact. And I still remember saying to her, that's good, Tiff, when it stops, I'll be able to get out. I'm still doing 100 miles an hour. Anyway, it crashed on the barrier on the other side, and it all went on for a half mile like an aircraft crash. It all stopped, punched the.
Have you got your foot on the brake at this point?
No, I don't think I did. I can't remember that bit.
No.
But it is that concentration. I'm the same as you, because if I'm not concentrating driving the public roads, and I'm driving along thinking about the sat-nav and all this horrible touch screen, which should be banned from all cars. Terrible. I'm down there trying to get rid of my heated seat. Oh, woman on road, whoa! And I miss someone, and I've got jelly legs, 50 yards down the road, because something's happened. That's shock. Shock is things happening that you're not prepared for.
Yeah.
But as a racing driver, concentration is your whole keeping your life, So you concentrate 100%. And that's what we should do on the roads, and we don't, because we're all doing so many other things. Stupid, punching buttons on
Big
flat
touch
screens.
Yeah.
So it was a big shunt. But I got out of it, walked back, and no shock at all. Again, I was expecting jelly legs, but it doesn't come because you don't get shocked if you're prepared.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love the way you just talk calmly through it. Yeah, I went into the barriers at 160 backwards.
It was slowing down slowly.
So you've driven F1, which is pretty cool. You've driven Group C, which for me is
Wonderful.
one of the best classes of racing ever. And then the final, my particular favourite, is Group B rally cars. Now, you never rallied, but you did
The
rally cross
Yeah, I did. I
in a
think
Metro
it was-
6R4, which is just like the coolest
But
car ever.
that was thanks to the fact that I'd then become a TV tart.
Well,
See, the TV tart
Let's do that as
came
a
back.
segue. So we'll do a bit of TV tart. We'll come to TV a bit later. But so, what's a TV tart for Tiff?
Well, bloke on telly. I didn't want to be a bloke
Oh,
on
telly.
telly. I wanted to be a racing driver. That's all I wanted to be, was a racing driver.
But you got to drive a 6R4.
Yeah, but that was after I became a telly tart. So what was this? The 1980s. I've forgotten which decade we're in now. So 1980 I was Group C driver, but all of a sudden, Chris Goffey, 1987. So just before I became third at Le Mans in 1990. Third at Le Mans.
Third? Were you third at Le Mans?
I was third in 1990. I'd done some commentary with Murray Walker. So Murray Walker, the nicest man I've ever met in my life. Just a wonderful character. I was hanging out of Formula 3, Formula 2 races, trying to get a drive. I was hanging around with my helmet wheel travel, and I was one of the early sort of expert analysts, because it was those days with James, with Murray and James Hunt. And James wouldn't do the national races like Formula 2 and Formula 3 in England or Rallycross. He couldn't be asked for that. He just wanted Formula 1. So I was hanging around at the Formula 2 race, I think it was at Silverstone, and they got me in to talk with Murray Walker. So I had a wonderful 5 or 6 years that began of talking with Murray Walker, being the analyst, and just a wonderful man. And of course he lived locally and sadly passed, it's about 4 years ago now. Time disappears so quickly. But in fact, I'll tell you my Murray Walker story, because I always love it, because he was famous not only for being a passionate commentator, and he loved the sport. And he came over as a great commentator, because when things were a bit boring and quiet, he didn't keep shouting just to pretend it was exciting. He would bring up his anecdotes, the things that went wrong, and he would chat away. And he would always make cock-ups. You always look for a Murray made a cock-up. And some of my favourites were, he once said, and Andrea de Cesaris, who's won more Grand Prix than anyone else without ever having won one. And, no, he meant to say he's led more Grand Prix without having won one. But that was Murray. And he once said, and Mansell can see Prost in his earwings. Earwings? And he went wing mirrors, but the ear's close to the wing. And the favourite one to me was, and Martin Shanker's driving a car which is absolutely unique apart from the car behind. And he once actually did say, unless I'm very much mistaken, yes, I am very much mistaken. And off he went. But I learned what he did wrong, because I'm in the Formula Ford Festival. I did the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch, this wonderful once a year annual race where about 120 Formula Fords gather at Brands Hatch. And he would go round all 120 drivers, because he loved the sport, and get the details of your sponsors and your names of your wife and your children, who you loved and who you didn't. And he'd paste these all around in the commentary box. And so we're in the commentary box now. I'm sitting in the middle corner watching my screen to do the analysis. Murray always used to stand up, wouldn't sit down. So he's punch, and off they go, and into the lead. Initially, he's pretty much good because he knows, apart from if two cars are the same colour, he can get the driver, and off, and. Anyway, so he's punching the screen. But it's when it gets boring, Murray then has this brilliant idea of bringing extra analysis from his wonderful research he's led. So we've got someone like Brian Farmer or something who's miles out the lead in a Formula Ford race. It's a bit boring. So now's the time for Murray to bring in his wonderful dad. So he turns, hey, Brian Farmer, he's a garage mechanic from Sidcup in Kent. We're all watching our one and only television. Brian Farmer is now overtaking a back marker going to Paddock Hill Bend. He's going a bit wide. We're all going, whoa, it's a bit dodgy. No, it's a very experienced driver. Brian Farmer is now hitting the barriers flat out. And can't afford any accidents because he's running on a very low budget. Now, at this stage, the producers on the earcat said, Murray the monitor. We're all waving, but of course he's still behind him, you know. Wife and children will be watching from Paddock Hill Bend. He's now crawling out from his wreckage at Paddock Hill Bend. And eventually he turned back from his thing, oh, and off goes Brian Farmer. Of course, we'd already seen it happen, but it was wonderful, man, absolutely wonderful. So that got me sort of the BBC connection. And then when Chris Goffey broke his ankle doing a Top Gear test of a single-seater racing car in 1987, they thought we needed a substitute driver just to drive the car for Chris Goffey. And they knew where I was and knew what I sounded like, so they phoned me up to do this one item. And I thought before the item, every time I watch telly and racing cars, it all looks a bit easy, doesn't it, really? Turn the steering, especially Formula One now with power steering. They just go into the corner and out of the corner, into the corner, and no excitement, is there? It doesn't look dangerous on a modern board. So I deliberately intended in that to kick it sideways and beat the opposite lock. The BBC producers couldn't believe I could talk at the same time because it looked like I was about to have a huge accident. And so they got me back doing more and more. So that's how the Top Gear started. And I ended up doing more and more of that. And some great tall called Clarkson and some bloke called Quentin Wilson talking about second-hand cars.
He's still talking.
He's still talking about his tall.
To be fair.
And Jeremy Clarkson's still a tall, fat. Well,
Yeah, pretty much.
But I love them both.
Excellent. So we'll come on to telly in a bit because I think that kind of brings us up to the today, if you like. But we're at Bewley, and there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about at Bewley. So let's talk about first up. There's a couple of very special cars here that you've driven.
There are indeed. In fact, one of them is on another. This
on a
foyer. The foyer is full of my memories. We've got the Austin 7.
I don't know whether that was done on purpose, by the way.
I can't believe I got into an Austin 7 that small. That's so small.
I know,
But there's the Gordon Bennett thing. Napier, thank you. I always need footing it. Which I was lucky enough to drive for a Top Gear item, one of my early Top Gear items, probably 1989, 1987, 88. So I was entrusted by the Bewley Museum to do this wonderful Gordon Bennett history story. And it's the most magical story because that's where British Racing Green came from. So the Napier is green because in those days the Gordon Bennett trophy was done, the whole car had to be manufactured in the country. So the white Mercedes, and the tyres, everything had to be manufactured in the country. Wow. So there was only about Germany and Britain and France that did the early races. I'm not sure how many, Italy probably. But the winner of the previous year had to run the next year's event. And so Britain won it with the Napier. But then in 1903 or 4, whatever year the Napier is. Three. So it must be 1903. There was no motorsport allowed on mainland England at all. There was no racing permitted. I think people were still walking in front with red flags just about. But Ireland had the freedom to run the motor race. So Ireland let us run the English team over in Ireland, and that's why we painted the cars green, thanks to the Irish for allowing us to race there.
No way. And then called it British Racing Green.
And they called it British Racing Green, which is why the Napier, which I drove, so that was the story. And I was entrusted to drive this thing, which was amazing. But that wasn't my dream. Luckily, my dream came true when they phoned me up to ask me to do some demonstration laps with the Lotus 49 Goodwood, which of course was Jim Clark's favourite car. And Jim Clark was the greatest driver ever. Well, I think it's actually a Graham Hill car they've got here. It's not actually a Jim Clark car. I think it's a Graham Hill car. In fact, I think on the demonstration, I made them change the number from 6 to 5, just so I could have a photograph in Jim Clark's number 5 Lotus 49. So there's 2 cars here at the museum, which I was very lucky to be entrusted to by the...
So when you get to that, so you mentioned Jim Clark right at the beginning and said he was your hero when you first started Formula Ford. And then here you spring forward a number of years later and suddenly you're sat in his car.
Tears again.
Of all places.
I'm pathetic with tears.
And you're driving that.
In fact, the Goodwood Revival, Lord March, I forget which year it was now, 96, 97, the first Goodwood Revival. Because, that's where I grew up as a kid. That's what made me love motorsport. Being at Goodwood, watching these heroes go by. And all of a sudden, I was now going to race, and I was racing a Lister Nobley, which Archie Scott Brown drove and Sterling Moss drove, round the track where I'd watch these heroes, and it was recreated exactly as it was when I was a kid. And the stalls where the cars are and the paddock is as it was when I walked around as a 9, 10-year, 12-year-old. So I've done every revival meeting, 25 of them I've now done. Wow. I think I don't know how far it goes back. But every time I go there, I just think back that this is my dream recreated. And I actually got a painting, they had a handicap race on that first event. I was in a Lister Nobley. And I caught and passed Sterling Moss driving his Aston Martin DBR1 that won the Tourist Trophy when he swapped cars because his car caught fire. And I was there in the pit. I watched the fire in the pits. And now I'm racing against Sterling. It was just a charmer. He'd obviously seen me on television, which I didn't understand. My heroes, when I go to sort of charity golf, and my heroes say, "Hello, Tiff, how you doing?" You know who I am, I'm your hero. But Sterling was like that, old boy, hello, old boy, how you doing, old boy?
Yeah,
wonderful.
he's a gentleman.
So I had this painting made where, it's only painting of a commission, where Sterling's leading me at the Goodwood Revival meeting, and I'm about to overtake him in my Lister Nobley. But I made sure the painter painted the whole background as 1959. So the sort of chicane and the grandstands were 1959 spec.
Cool.
So of course I'm one of the little pink spots in the Woodcote grandstand is me. But then I'm in the car as well. So it's like I was living the dream. And every time I go back to Goodwood, I still live the dream. Because I still makes it, I'm talking now, I'm getting a bit emotional. It's just wonderful.
I'm glad you kind of just naturally came onto Goodwood because I live 3 miles from Goodwood and I go to all the events and they're really special. I hate the worst question is not which is your favourite child, but which is your favourite Goodwood event. I almost find it a really difficult question. But when you're as a punter, you go and watch the racing, and I think they're all amazing events. But when you look at Revival and you look at the TT, or you look at some of the Kinrara Trophy, the grid value is unbelievable. And the question I always, whenever I get to talk to one of the drivers of one of the great cars, is when you're driving a great car and you kind of know how much that car's worth, and then they give it to a bunch of motor racing apes to drive round and bang door to door.
Hold on, I'm one of those invitees.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on, apes.
So
apes.
What I want to know is how do you almost decompartmentalize the value of the
You forget
car
the value and get stuck in there. I always say
Talk to us about that, please.
Well, the only thing is, if you bend something, whether it's old or new, it's the same cost to unbend it, basically. The only real danger is fire. If fire burns your £4 million E-Type to dust, then it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But if you just bend them a bit, that's what they're there for. And I think every time I do I get asked to supercar clubs. Where's Superclays? Someone's here. So we've got one here coming up in I'm hoping I'll be here at Supercar Club. What the date is? Tell them all.
10th
of what?
August.
August, long time away. And if I get asked to judge, I always look for a car that's a bit used and a bit like it was. People that put toothpaste up the exhaust pipes to make it look black, I feel a bit worried about, to be honest. And I think cars that are used, they're the ones I always vote for. They never win when I'm a judge, because I always vote for the ones that look more used and more got heritage in them. So cars shouldn't be perfect anymore. If they've been raced, they should have a few dents on them. They should have a few stone chips on the bonnet.
And apart from your overtaking Sterling Moss, which is a very cool pub story,
I felt guilty.
Well, give us your 3 Goodwood highlights in terms of maybe cars or?
Oh, the list of Nobblies always stands out. It's the most one that we drove the most. But AC Cobras, E-Type Jaguars.
See, a Cobra around Goodwood, that's got to be
They're a bit brutal,
bit
brutal, the Cobras. But the Lotus 30 had an amazing race. The one car that even Jim Clark couldn't tame. I drove in a wet race and finished third and felt like a Superman. I didn't crash it.
Wow.
Lotus 30, beast of a sports car.
And you're
Always
going to
had
be
it.
at members meeting in a few weeks' time?
Members meeting in a few weeks' time.
What are you driving?
A Mustang. We're all in Mustangs this year. The
Mustang.
celebrity races are Mustangs.
You've not got a Can-Am because they're doing the Can-Am celebration as well.
I've driven a Can-Am car as well, man. I've driven so many cars. I just feel so. I'm so lucky.
Great. So I love having a chat
The
with him. 'Cause
trouble
I'm
is-
like, what have you driven, Tiff? Well, that's, you know.
I always, my wife thinks I'd be like Mad Nigel Mansell, had great fame and fortune, but and luckily I wasn't like Mad Nigel Mansell, and haven't got the money, but I've got the experience I've had, you know, of not being a superstar. I think sometimes I look at modern Grand Prix drivers, I'm always sorry for them because all they do is the Grand Prix. Every week they're the same track, the pressure, the press, same track, on and on. And none of these Grand Prix drivers have any of this wider experience, you know. And I raced in Japan, I raced in all sorts of weird places, Macau, the greatest street circuit. In fact, you're looking, hold on a minute,
Oh, here we go.
at the winner of the 1983 Bangalore Grand Prix. Wow. I bet Nigel Mansell never won that. So I had this wonderful life and not earned the millions that Nigel did.
Yeah.
And he's just bitter, living on his island, upset. Still upset because I put him in the wall at Donington, his full Mondeo. Still gets upset about that. Wasn't my fault even, the Birmingham.
So the scary thing about that, so I don't know if you remember the Nigel Mansell crash at Donington when he was racing in the Ford Mondeo. I was at the old hairpin
You saw
on
it?
that corner. Literally, he crashed right in front of me. I was in the paper the next day. So they had all the marshals were holding curtains around the car because it took him a while to get out of the car.
did,
And in the the big tabloid the next day, you got the curtains, and in the background you could see me stood by the. So there's you racing, it's me stood as a punter at the other side of the.
According to Nigel, it was all my fault when the whinging Brummie came across me in front of me.
It's if you ever, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube probably. There's a great bit of in car because he comes through the old hairpin and then bumps you maybe.
No, but he bumped me.
All right, oh sorry, he bumped him. He bumped you. Yeah, and you can hear him just going, and he goes, and bang, straight into the Starkey's Bridge.
One of the greatest drivers he had, but a complete out of the car. Nigel.
Oh, dear. So we've talked about the cars that you've driven here at Bewley. You won an Oscar at Bewley as well, I believe.
No, well, it was almost an Oscar.
Yeah.
It was more a gotcha.
Gotcha, Oscar.
I got invited in the mid-90s down to Bewley to do a charity video. And I thought, I don't know, all right, I'll do that.
The
So
alarm
this-
bells not start ringing already.
Mid-1990s, I was big on Top Gear. We had about 6 million viewers back then, me, Clarkson and Quentin. So I came down here for a day's filming for a sort of charity story, not much detail about it. I was a bit suspicious when I arrived because all of a sudden there was makeup and wardrobe, but you know, all the Top Gear film I ever did in the 1990s was just you, a cameraman, a sound man, and a director, 4-man team, until the big fat did more money and they had massive, £1 million a show modern Top Gear cost you. We were about £50,000. Anyway, so I came down here to this show. I didn't know what the story was. They asked me could I do poetry. The bloke that did He Wandered Lonely Through a Thing, who was that? He wandered. Wordsworth, that's the bloke. Anyway, so I'm into makeup, I'm putting sideburns on, I'm putting weird hair on, an old costume, and then I'm told to go by car and read half the Wordsworth and half the Wordsworth here. And I thought, shit, something's wrong here. This is because the budget was so big, that's what I'd sussed them. So I started saying into my microphone, because the sound man's normally listening, wherever you say, they're always listening sound men. They record it forever, and then they throw it at the national newspapers in 10 years' time.
Yeah, it's like Drive to Survive.
I called him a but this was, maybe you don't know about Noel Edmonds. What was it called again?
No, it was the house party, was it? Yeah.
Not the house
Gotcha
party,
Oscar.
the Gotcha. Do you how many hands that remember?
I'm
there
pretty
weren't many
confident that
gotchas.
the average demographic in here will remember Noel Evans.
Well,
Yeah.
not many put their hands up. So they caught you out doing something stupid, then you were gotcha'd. But I knew it was a con. I thought it had to be Noel Edmonds. So I kept on saying the little thing, oh, come on, Noel, come on, get your helicopter. Where are you coming? When are you landing? But nothing happened. The day ended. I did this day's filming with this weird car covered in something. I forget even what it was. So I went home thinking, what was all that about? Anyway, the London Motor Show, which was on the November that same year, all of a sudden Clarkson and Quentin are saying to me, Tiff, you've got to come and launch a new thing. You've got to do a launch of a car. And I thought, oh, this is going wrong. And of course, when I pulled the cover off the car, the London Motor, it was the car that I'd done Wordsworth to. Then Noel turns up with his gotcha.
That's got to be on YouTube, surely. Yeah. We've got to
I
be
hide
finding
it,
that. Yeah.
get caught. In fact, I've got a gotcha, and I'm undefeated on University Challenge,
Wow. Okay.
and undefeated on Pointless.
You've been on Pointless.
Oh, undefeated.
Oh, my favourite. I love Pointless.
We won Pointless, and the City University, which I was doing my civil engineering degree at, won the University Challenge, but didn't quite win it because it was when only the top 4 scoring teams got through to the semi-finals,
Okay.
and City University didn't score enough. But still were undefeated.
That's very impressive, mate. Very impressive.
Thank you.
I'm conscious of keeping on time. I'd like to now get into Teleland.
Ooh.
Because I mean, I think most people will recognise you from a TV show
Yeah.
of some kind. You know, I know you want to be a racing driver and everything, but your fame comes from being on TV. So you started off in Top Gear and then went into Fifth Gear. But just talk us through. So you mentioned that the inroads into TV was the whole Murray Walker.
Chris Goffey,
you know,
then Chris Goffey breaking his
and
ankle.
that was just fluke. It wasn't a conscious move that
No,
you said, I want to be
my
on
whole
the telly
life,
box.
the great thing about my whole life is it's all come by accident because nothing was planned. So I won a car in a magazine competition, you know,
Yeah.
and I've got a Durex scholarship, you know, then I got the Formula One drive and then, you know, ended up in sports cars and then ended up in Top Gear because nothing was ever planned. It all seemed to sort of fall my way by accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, Top Gear was wonderful. I mean, it was, you know, was when it took off in the 1990s with Jeremy and Quentin and me, and we started the car shows. We went to some Birmingham and London when they did live cars. We were on a stage there, mucking about. And of course, Jeremy was a disaster. Once we got on stages, I mean, he's bad enough when he's talking what he talks about car manufacturers, but without the BBC holding him back, Birmingham, he could say what he wanted. And he once. There was one bad event. The only time he got really into trouble was when he talked about the Kia's dog-eating designers making a dog's dinner of a car. Nothing factually was incorrect there because Koreans eat dogs and the designers probably eat dogs and they designed a dog's dinner of a car. So we got complaints about that. So we had to stop doing any dog jokes after that.
Really?
Well, it was unfortunate because the car manufacturer's stand nearest the Top Gear magazine stage was Kia.
Oh.
So we woofed a bit after that, but we didn't actually do any jokes about cars. But Clarkson, of course, in his own way, still managed to completely get us into trouble. Because one year we were arriving in Birmingham, right? Halfway through all this wonderful mid-90s, 6 million viewers, it was all kicking off. The Top Gear magazine was launched. Life was great. He decided to do a column in whatever paper it was, the Times then, about Birmingham's fair city. This is the day before we arrived in Birmingham, 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
Right? Not at the end of the 2 weeks, no. He decided to describe Birmingham's fair city as a rugby player's bath with the plug pulled out. Empty in the middle, with a ring of scum on the outside. It's true. It's in the newspaper.
Wow.
We've now arrived. We're dining out in Birmingham's fair city. Clarkson, me. But amazingly, he has this knack of getting out of these sort of problems.
Yeah.
He merely said, I'm trying to help you all, Birmingham, in your city, by bringing more income, you know, to help change it around from being a rugby player's bath with the plug pulled out.
Wow.
But it was good fun. But unfortunately, Jeremy first left the programme to do his chat show. Does anyone ever remember Jeremy Clarkson had a chat show on telly?
It was successful.
And then Quentin left his Top Gear to go and sell millions of cars on when the old Euro exchange was none worse. So the Top Gear audience went down. Mm-hmm. Then we had a new producer of Top Gear, Elaine Root, the first ever female channel controller. She didn't like our show at all. Didn't want cars. Well, that's fair enough. She didn't want cars on her BBC Two. So she mucked around with the programme for a while. It was in this great dumbing down. I always hate the word dumbing down because I lived through dumbing down on Top Gear. I was told to put jelly in my hair, untuck my shirt. Do we have to have all these numbers? Do we need numbers on our show? And so, of course, the loyal audience disappeared. They always say, these new directors, producers, they're going to widen. The worst word is, I'm going to widen the audience. No, just stick to the people you've got and make them happy. So eventually, when her brilliant ideas didn't work, Jane Root's idea, she pulled the plug on Top Gear, which is when I helped create Fifth Gear, which was the Top Gear team moved to Channel 5, and we took off. And then I actually believe if we hadn't created Fifth Gear, they wouldn't have created Top Gear, new Top Gear.
Yeah.
Because when Fifth Gear, it was a bit of a mistake, this one, because we launched Fifth Gear the year after Top Gear shut down. It was the same Top Gear team, but moved to Fifth Gear. And Channel 5 actually put posters up outside BBC head office in London saying, the Top Gear team has moved to Channel 5, which was true. Again, more facts, because actually there was only 8 people worked in BBC Pebble Mill. They all moved to Channel 5 for us to make the show. So then people knocked on Jane Root's door saying, well, Jane, what's happened to Top Gear? You know, it's gone to Channel 5. And so she was now pressurised into bringing Top Gear back. So someone said, well, the only way you're going to get Top Gear back is to get Jeremy back. So she had to send her henchman down to Jeremy's mansion in Oxford, and they had to hose £50 notes through his front door. And only when the fat was up to his nose in filthy lucre, and he was standing in his attic at the time, did he agree to come back and make... But he wanted, I want an airfield, I don't want to go Birmingham ever again, I want an airfield in Surrey, I want a helicopter every day. So this whole cost of filming that just escalated out of my dreams, and the new Top, and of course it was great. He got Jeremy back doing cars, which is what he does best, and it's been a huge success. There's actually a lovely sort of side story to that, how fate. Now I've talked about my life, accidents happened that got me where I ended up by luck, because Richard Hammond was just desperate to be a Top Gear presenter. And I think he made 2 attempts before the last attempt. So about 2000, right towards the end of Top Gear, there was another space, because Jane Root kept on firing people. He kept on trying to get new presenters, with new accents. Yeah. It was always this new that this current modern world seems to be obsessed with. You've got to say new angle. And Richard was one of the, I desperately want that job. And he did a test video that year 2000, and so did Andrew Simpson. So it was down between Andrew and Hammond, who would get this Top Gear job. And he went to Adrian. And so I'd heard that, Hammond was nearly shooting himself and getting drunk and pissed and, end of my life, I can't believe it. So we had Adrian, but of course Adrian went to Fifth Gear with us when Top Gear was shut. So Hammond was free to join the new Top Gear. Oh. So had he got, because I actually voted for Richard, I said, well, let's have Hammond. So literally that little twist, 2 people. So if Hammond had got the Top Gear gig in 2000, he would have been on Fifth Gear. Yeah. And the whole world would be in a different place. And such is fate and twists and turns.
But yeah, so let's talk Fifth Gear. So because I was with a good friend of yours, Vicky Butler Henderson, last week.
Lovely Vicky. She
says hello. I said to her, I'm doing a thing with Tiff on Saturday. She went, oh, you must say hello to him for me. And she's still just as lovely as ever.
Vicky's wonderful, and she can drive cars. This is a great thing.
I remember one of the films you did. I can't remember which one was in a Lancia. An Evolution, Mitsubishi Evolution.
Evos, yeah.
Evo. And one of you was in a Subaru, and you were on a circuit, and you were just kicking the arse out and sliding it around, and it was just cool.
She's wonderful. She's a great driver, and but not on telly anymore. But she's got YouTube.
She's got YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, she has indeed. She was at a mini event with me last week. So let's just talk in our last few minutes. I can't not ask you about sliding cars around, because you get some big skids. Is this guy the best car slider on telly?
Well, I feel guilty about it now.
How do you do it?
Well, everybody does it.
I try, and I'm getting better, but you watch you, and it's almost like you're dancing with the car. and I'm sure it just comes from practice. But can you give us some tips? Obviously, this is just for racetrack, not on the public road, people. Not on roundabouts. But come on,
in fact,
give us some sliding skills.
I'll get a plug in first.
Yeah.
Please come and experience this at thruxtonracing.co.uk. You can passenger with me for 3 laps. The most exhilarating, the best birthday present you can give to anyone.
I gave you that segue.
Thank you. You got that. You've got that. Okay. Because what I do at Thruxton is slide the car around, and it is something I've just grown. I mean, it's something I say way back to that first TV. I said it looks a bit dull. I'll kick the car sideways to make it look exciting. And so, Top Gear with BMW started coming up. I started sliding them more and more with more and more tyres. So I was the first person really to do sideways smoking tyres, and it's just something. I suppose the more airfields I had cars to play with, I was enabled to sort of muck around and learn how to get them sideways as much as possible. So it's just a little skill I developed, and I could talk at the same time. And you can experience it at thruxtonracing.co.uk. But it is fun. But I mean, obviously now every YouTuber, they all do it. You'll crash soon. You have to have a couple of offs before it works.
Yeah. And you have to have lots of tyres as well.
But it's just a joy. I think, going right back to how I started to be a racing driver, I learned to drive in Mum's Morris 1000, going back to when I was 17. I mean, on a wet road in Mum's Morris 1000 at 20 miles an hour, you've got car control. It was a beautiful. Sterling Moss actually said the Morris Minor was the best handling car he'd ever driven at that stage in 1955 or 6 when they first came out. But it was a really well balanced car. And I could go around a roundabout in the wet with the throttle, holding the slide on the throttle. And once I actually got stopped, this is actually a true story by a police officer that said, "Do you normally drive sideways round roundabouts, sir?" But this was the beauty of the police in those days, which is what's gone so wrong nowadays. And I think this animosity between the public and the police is just so horrendous. And, he let me off. I said, well, it was wet, officer, and it was a bit slippy, and so I was on opposite lock. And he said, well, yes, so we'll just try to go a bit
Who do you think
slower.
you are, Sterling Moss? Well, no, but I'll be overtaking him in about 20 years' time.
But I did have a lot of conversations with that with police officers. I got to talk to a lot of police officers in my early days. And I don't know why. But there was that balance between giving you a ticket and understanding and educating you and say, all right, son, just calm it down a bit.
Yeah.
So, I learned to drive on a Morris 1000 sideways, which I'm the only person that hates the Mini. Because everybody says everybody loves the Mini. No, I don't love the Mini. It brought front-wheel drive to the masses, and I don't like front-wheel drive and understeer.
I'm the biggest Mini fan ever. I built my YouTube channel on Mini.
I don't
you
care.
Can't say that. Drive it backwards.
So that's why you can't drift cars, because you drove a stupid Mini. There you go.
Too brute. Yeah. Damn.
So, and then, as I grew up, and BMWs are my favourite sort of car, and that's anything rear-wheel drive was the way to go. So I got that sort of sliding skill from the word go. Every time it snowed at home, I'd borrow, Mum, do you need another bread loaf from down the shop, Mum? Can I go out and buy another? It's snowing. I'll go, Mum, don't worry.
I reckon that's why youngsters can't drive sideways anymore, because it just doesn't snow anymore.
No,
when was the last time you had enough snow to go to the local supermarket car park? I know.
Wonder, but at Thruxton you can do a skid pan as well.
Can you?
I don't do that, but you can. www.thruxton.co.uk. Skid pan.
Well, I reckon we are pretty much, look at that.
A minute before.
Yeah. So the one thing I want to do before any of you stand up is I'm going to try and get a selfie from the front with everybody in. Okay, I don't know whether you might need the house lights up, because those spots are quite... Oh, as if by magic. And then how long's the coffee break? Oh, the bar break rather?
15 minutes.
Okay, let's try and do we'll try and do this from here. I'll try and get as many people in as we can. Look at that.
There we are.
Yeah,
that's good.
Ready?
We'll do that. Do it.
Yeah. Hey, smile. And we'll do one that way. Hold on, because you got this one's for Instagram.
This is a proper YouTuber. This is oh.
Hey. There we go.
Drinks up.
Ladies and gentlemen, back in 15 minutes for Q&A. Well, ladies and gents, welcome back. I hope everybody managed to get a drink. There was a bit of a queue at the bar. One of the privileges of being on the front stage is we got our drinks brought to us, which
Cheers,
is great.
everyone.
So,
Cheers,
everybody. We have some time for Q&A. Now, this is either where it's very embarrassing because there are any questions and no one has any questions and we all go home early, or we've got loads of questions, which I'm sure there will be. We've got a roving mic, so if you've got a question for either Tiff, which is most likely, or maybe me, I don't know, then just put your hand up and I'll send my roving.
Well, shout first.
My roving mic.
It's a small room. We might be able to shout.
Oi, Tiff. Yeah.
Who's got a question?
Who's got a question? Who's first? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Let's wait for the mic so everyone. Hold on. Whoa,
No,
wait
no,
for the
we
mic.
don't need
Wait
the
for the
mic.
Whoa,
Repeat.
whoa, whoa.
Repeat the question. We don't need the.
Is there a car that you wanted to drive but have never been able to drive? Is there a wish car?
Well, the Williams that won the Grand Prix Championship 1980, instead of the ensign, it was a piece of.
Good question. Good answer. Excellent. Yeah. No, it wasn't the answer I expected either. Next up, we got just behind you, just there, John.
Tiff, what would you say was your greatest win overall in your career?
Well, I didn't win that much, Ped.
No.
How do I answer this?
The win, being asked to come to Bewley to do a Q&A, that's a big win. Yeah.
When I had the right car and the right driver, I mean, the Formula Ford, the 5 years, I spent 4 years battling with not the best chassis. It's so important when you get to the right car at the right time. You look nowadays, it annoys me. GP2, which is the second step from Formula One, the young driver's got his family or his family's business partners have found £3 million to put you in your GP2 seat. So this is when you're going to be, seen by the Formula One team managers. But even though they're identical cars, you've still got to get into the team that seem to have the right little tweaks. So there's famous Prema team, which Ollie Behrman is now with. And in the first race of the Formula 2 season this year, Ollie Behrman qualified 19th, and his teammate was 18th. And so, well, they're a bit crap, those two, aren't they? We look at the front two. The second race, the Prema team had sorted out, and Ollie Behrman qualified in pole position. So the terrifying thing is, if you don't get into the right car when you're climbing that ladder, the car is still so important. Even though all the Formula 3 cars and Formula 2 are the same car, you've got to have the right engineers tweaking it to get the best out of it. So the car is so important. I always say nowadays that I love the days of Jim Clark and stuff. When the car was 20% and the driver was 80%, and you have to expect nowadays the car is 90% and the driver is 5%. So I always look at the gaps between drivers. So Jim Clark could be like 2 seconds quicker around Monaco than a really good teammate. No tosser, good driver. But nowadays, if you're more than 0.2 slower in qualifying than your other driver, you're a tosser, you have a bad weekend. So it's a nightmare to get into the right car. What was the question? I've lost myself.
I think what you were basically saying, Tiff, is all the cars you drove were really
Yes.
Otherwise you'd have won.
So that's right, there we are.
There you
So,
go.
So I got this Formula 3 drive that saved me from being a civil engineer, but it was sponsored by Unipart, so they had the Dolomite Sprint engine. And all the winning cars had the Toyota engine. And it was just a better engine. So I spent 2 years in Formula 3, didn't win a race. That's winning. That's what he's talking about, winning.
Yeah.
And even Nigel Mansell, that took my drive, he couldn't win in a Formula 3 Dolomite Sprint Ped car. So winning is so hard. The higher I won loads of races in Formula 4 when everything was quite equal. In Formula 4 2000, I sort of dominated the championship. But as soon as you get into a formula where you haven't got the best engineers or the best car, Ollie Behrman, if he's lucky, he'll be in a Haas next year. And if he's in a Haas, he'll be lucky if he qualifies 14th or 15th, So I didn't do that. Was my biggest frustration, because winning is what it's all about. Win. You'll jump up the ladder of motorsport. And I didn't. Once I left Formula Ford and in Formula 3, I didn't win anymore. So, great results to me was when I finished third in a car against brilliant cars, so I felt really happy. So personally, being third at Le Mans, we were the only privateer team in a Porsche. With the two factory silk cuts beat us, and behind us was the factory Porsche was fourth, the factory Nissan was fifth, and the factory Toyota was sixth. So to me, that was a huge win. So I won in my brain, although I didn't on the spec sheet. And then as you grow up, that's how you have to accept motorsport, because motorsport isn't fair. If you get the wrong car at the wrong time of your career, you can be the most brilliant driver. As I said, Ollie Behrman qualified 19th in the first Formula 2 race of this season because he couldn't drive around the car. And that's the problem in modern motorsport. So my best win was finishing third at Le Mans.
That's standing on the podium at Le Mans.
Well,
Let's not undersell that. Is awesome.
More tears.
With
more
two
tears,
silk cut
more
Jaguars
tears.
in front of you. A round of applause, I think. Come on. Who's got the champagne? We need a bottle of champagne. Another question. Oh, there we go. Look at that. You don't have to walk too far there. Yeah, you can.
Of all the cars you've currently got access to, what car do you enjoy driving the most at the moment?
Well, that's either my lawnmower or my quad bike,
Oh, you got
or the wife's X3,
You got a Maserati part.
or the Maserati.
Maserati.
Because like Ped, I'm an ambassador for Hendy, and Hendy are this wonderful South Coast, have all sorts of cars. I've become ambassador for them. I had a Jaguar XF Sport Brake, which I really enjoyed. I was a BMW ambassador for about 10 years before that. So basically, free cars are my sort of, that.
That's what I had access to.
And the most amazing fact that nobody really believes is the last time I owned a car was 1984. I have not owned a car, apart from the family, which was an X5 and then an X3. So I do have a Maserati now. And I have to say, and this, I'm not changing my mind, because I've driven all these wonderful cars, tested them once off, and wonderful cars. I've had BMWs now, Audis, Mercedes, and I've always looked at Maserati as a bit of a curiosity at the side. In fact, the Maserati Ghibli that I've now got, all the magazine journalists rubbished it. It became one of these things that journalists go out to press launches, and there's a sort of theme that if a senior journalist mocks it for a reason, everyone follows like a sheep of... They don't seem to have individual opinions enough, in my opinion. We're about to get run over by something.
Sounds like a lawnmower.
So, Hendy phoned me up and said, we want to change your car from a Jaguar. We've got a new Maserati franchise. Would you mind being in a Ghibli? So I thought, oh, go on then. Go on then. So I got this, and I've absolutely loved it. I'm not kidding. I've driven everything. And I think, I don't know what they moaned about. These journalists do get onto the ride quality is the only thing that maybe is a bit, but I don't mind that. It feels like it's alive to me. So all of a sudden I'm in this Maserati, which I thought wasn't much. It's way above Audi, Mercedes, BMW. It's just another level up. And the worst thing is, it's a four-door saloon that they're going to discontinue, because all you tossers out there want SUVs. And you'll want, I want to sit up high. And so literally the Ghibli has been a failure. But to me, I drive it, it's the most wonderful four-door saloon. I've just come back from America, funny. I've had a 2-week trip and ended up in tennis. And my big bags went in the back of this big Mitsubishi heap of SUV. And they go in the back of the Ghibli. The Ghibli, I can get my golf clubs and the electric trolley flat on the floor. Because the whole thing people don't understand about SUVs is their load space is actually very short. So yes, you can pile up and like this on top of each other, but you can't get long things like this. Every estate car, I'm an estate car fanatic. BMWs, when I was the ambassador, I had their Sport Brake, not Sport Brake, that's Jaguar, that's the next one. Yeah. Their, what are they called?
Touring.
Tourings. I had 5 Series Tourings. To me, the perfect car. Long boot space, not short and high. So I've been in this Maserati, which I've had now for about a year or something, and I'm absolutely loving it. Maserati, get away from it. I'm driving slower now, minding the potholes. I'm in a Maserati. I'm loving being in a Maserati right now. I know it's free, but I'm being genuinely honest about my opinion as opposed to SUVs or BMWs or anything.
Your Hendy call went better than mine, then. So what did you go from?
I went from a Jaguar to a Maserati.
We'll put you from a Jaguar to a Maserati.
Yeah.
Mine was, hi Ped, Land Rover Defender 90 to a electric Vauxhall Astra.
Yeah, you're very, very lucky. Yeah. It's good for YouTube, good for YouTube.
Yeah.
There was a question up there in the corner.
A very simple question. What was the most apocryphal on TV moment in your driving career? Some huge off or...
Apocryphal?
That means scary.
Oh, scary.
Is it? I don't know.
Went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
I went wrong, I went right. And nothing went wrong, me on telly, obviously.
How many cars have you smashed up, Tiff?
Can apocryphal be best moment?
How many cars have you smashed
Can
up?
apocryphal be best moment? Can it be best moment or worst moment?
The worst moment when it's all...
Yeah, when it's all gone Pete Tong. What smashed? You've smashed some cars
I
up.
haven't. All my years of drifting, I haven't smashed anything. Nothing's ever gone wrong.
Bullshit! I know you're lying.
No, I can't. You see, the whole point is in my life, I always look on the bright side of life. I'm always a pint half full. And so I don't remember bad things in my life. Like I was at boarding school. I remember boarding school was wonderful, but there were things that went on which would make the front pages of most modern tabloids.
I tell you,
Not me included, but other people, obviously.
Why don't you just list cars that Jeremy Clarkson or Chris Harrison smashed up?
They've smashed a lot.
Yeah.
So, no, the best moment, which is what you really want to know, was when I drove a Williams Grand Prix car and Vicky Butler Henderson was in the V10 BMW M5. We raced around Rockingham Circuit. That was the most hip... What was the word?
That one.
Yeah, that one. So I don't remember any bad stuff in life. Life's been lucky for me, so I just remember the good times. But I can't remember the bad. I haven't crashed
cool.
anything.
Was it an FW14B?
Yeah, I'll be sleeping tonight trying to remember for next time. What's the most hip-hop? That word.
Which generation of Williams car was that?
I was in the BMW powered FW whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And the BMW had the V10 in the M5. Epic round Rockingham. I had to do 3 laps before she did 2 or something, and it was epic.
Cool. Next question. Oh,
Hypocrisy.
up there, and then we'll come down here.
Hypocrisy.
What was that word again?
A 2-part question, unfortunately, Tiff. Your opinion on the XJ220 and the Lister Storm?
Oh. Well, one's a huge 2-ton truck, which actually I drove one recently, XJ220. I drove one recently on my Kahuna website, all YouTube.
I've seen that, it's good.
Kahuna. And I actually quite enjoyed driving it, but when it came out, it was so long and big, and it didn't have the V12 engine in the back, and it was a turbo, and it was very disappointing, and the brakes didn't work, and then it crashed it. Nearly hypocritical, but it wasn't. It didn't hypocritical.
Yeah.
And the Lister Storm, of course, was a racing car. It was a cheat, the Lister Storm. It was never really a road car. So one was a sort of road car designed to be a road car, and the other was a road car designed to be a racing car.
Both
Lister
smaller
Storm
than
was
the new Mini Countryman.
What?
Both smaller than the new Mini Countryman.
What? Lister Storm is smaller than a
the Mini Countryman's massive. Yeah.
So Lister Storm was by far the better car, but the Jaguar was the 220 was the truck that was the nicest road car. Sort of.
Good question.
Did that answer the question?
I think so.
It did, really.
Next question was checkered shirt. Just.
They should just shout. We can repeat it.
Yeah.
He'll fall down the stairs in a minute.
Well, being a big fan of Top Gear, I was just wondering, I don't know if this is right what I'm saying, but did you film an episode of some of the old presenters with Paddy, Freddie and Chris before the show was rescued?
Yes, he's mentioned. I wouldn't be here tonight doing this for nothing. I'd be making big money again. The new Top Gear, the last series to be filmed, I was back on Top Gear. They did an episode, as this gentleman's found out secretively. They asked Angela Ripp and Chris Goffey and me to go back and represent the 70s, 80s and 90s of Top Gear. And we paired up with the current 3 idiots. Well, ex-3 idiots now. I was with Harris and Angela was with Freddie and Chris was with that northern whatever his name is. Anyway, so we filmed this item and it was brilliant. Ben, I was going to be big again.
You are
I
big,
arrived
mate.
for the opening X, got out of the car, and Freddie and Chris, hail the hero, got a great tiff. It was going to be mega. I was going to be charging more and more money. And that's now on the cutting room floor. It's there. Me and Chris obviously were perfectly matched.
That a skid off between you two would have been
It was
awesome.
a skid off. So sadly, yes, I was back on Top Gear, but never, it's there somewhere. But now Top Gear's over because they employ people to drive cars that can't drive cars. Yeah. Old Top Gear, 5th Gear, we have racing drivers doing fast car stuff. As soon as you encourage amateurs to do things that they're not fit to do, things go wrong. So sadly, Freddie was only about 30 miles an hour and he scraped his face down the runway, which wasn't very pleasant, I must admit, but there we go.
No.
We're sort of silent now, isn't it?
Next question, yeah. You can
I
just
love
shout,
Freddie,
we'll
though.
do shout outs. And we'll...
Have you ever driven around the Nürburgring? And if you have, then what was your experience of that?
Did everyone hear that? Have you driven around the Nürburgring? And if you have, what was your experience?
I've never raced it. Sadly, the Group C days when I did the Porsche World Championship, it was the new, stupid, boring Grand Prix track. So I've driven around it many times in road cars doing promotions and stuff. It's the most awesome circuit as a driver. But funny enough, the only tweak is that it's like, what's that idiot that designed these Grand Prix circuits called?
Tilke.
Tilke. So Tilke, this man that's ruined Formula One with these ridiculous tracks, grew up racing on the Nürburgring. Now, every driver would say it's the most wonderful circuit. You love the Nürburgring. You haven't been there, it's the most greatest experience. But if you analyse it, it's a load of 300 corners and a great long straight. And you cannot, if you're on equal cars, when you look at Group C, or not Group C, or now GT3, or even saloon cars, the World Touring cars went there, you cannot overtake for the entire track until you get to the long straight. If you look at all the modern Grand Prix tracks that that idiot Tilke's designed, they've all got too many corners and a great big long straight. And overtaking once a lap doesn't work. You've got to be able to overtake twice a lap or 3 times a lap. You have to make more overtaking opportunities. So I rage against Formula One because they have these 24 corners and 1 straight. And so yeah, I love the Nürburgring, and you can't. And something like Suzuka, I've raced a lot in Japan. Suzuka's the most amazing drivers' track. All the drivers love Suzuka, but you can't overtake. And this is the problem with the drivers who interview them. There are circuits they'll love as a driver, but then you point out, but you can't overtake on it. But the driver doesn't see that. The driver just sees the joy of 1 lap of Nürburgring or 1 lap of Suzuka. But racing circuits have to have more design to encourage areas to overtake. Have you done the Nürburgring? You must have been round.
Yeah, I went round. I've not driven it because I went round with a guy called Misha who is based at the Nürburgring. You might have watched some of his videos. And I went round the first ever lap in his car, and I just sat there and thought, I'm never ever going to go anywhere near as fast as him, so I'm not going to try. And then the next day I met a British guy who'd done the N24 5 times, and he took me around in the new Porsche GT3, the 992 GT3. And I remember he said this, I've got 3 rules. First, rule number 1, you have to wear a helmet. I thought, I'm cool with that. Because on Touristfahrten, you don't have to wear a helmet, because it's just a toll road. Number 2, no photographs or video, no cameras. So I went, I'm cool with that, I'll just enjoy it for me. And number 3, you sure you're up for this? And he said it really seriously.
I would have said you're a boring someone else.
And off we went. And honestly, so we were pulling nearly 2G on the brakes in a road car with road tyres. It was unbelievable. The knowledge this guy had of the circuit.
What car are you in?
A 992 GT3. But it's got, I can't remember how many, it's 18 odd kilometres long. It's a massive circuit. It's got so many undulations. It's a beautiful track. Lots of elevation changes, trees, but it's terrifying.
It's even quite frightening in a Ford Anglia.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anything's frightening in a Ford Anglia. Yeah. Wow.
I love a Ford Anglia.
Yeah, angle box. Amazing. Next question. Another question?
Down the front.
Gentlemen.
Thank you. To both of you, in your careers, which has been the most outstanding car you've driven?
The McLaren F1 will never be defeated. The greatest supercar. And this again that drives me crazy with modern hypercars. So McLaren F1, you've got a V12 BMW behind you. You sit in the middle. It's a manual gearbox. There's no power steering. There's no power brakes. You drive it. It's got 640 horsepower. And Rowan Atkinson crashed his quite often. It's alive. So it's a complete animal. You've got no traction control. And it's the maximum any driver should be able to handle. And now what's happened with this flipping rubbish that's come ever since, 1,500 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower. Ever since that sort of era, they put more and more power in for these headline figures. But all they do is smother it in computers that have traction control, steering control. So you don't control any more power. This ridiculous power. You open the throttle of a 1,500 horsepower Bugatti, whatever, and the computer says, you can have 300 horsepower now because you're on a bit of a corner or it's a bit wet. And so you don't drive the things anymore. And that's why I'll always go back to the McLaren F1. And I actually did a column in a magazine saying that, if one day, a 19-year-old in a 1,500 horsepower Bugatti may run down a bus stop full of children and people. And they'll say, how have you allowed, a child to drive a 1,500 horsepower car? It's ridiculous. And I actually wrote a column saying we should actually self-regulate the motoring industry and say 650 horsepower is a maximum for any car, 400 horsepower is maximum for a four-door saloon, 300 horsepower is maximum for a two-wheel drive car. Because every new Porsche 911, drives me mad, has another 30 horsepower. Because it has to, because every time you go up another one, you've got to have 30 more horsepower. But if I had my 400 horsepower limit, you'd say, well, it's got the same 400 horsepower, but it now does another 5 miles to the gallon. So we'd look responsible, and we'd keep our hypercars, supercars, and more powerful saloon cars. But these 1,500 horsepower, they're just a joke. And I don't, you know, they're making racing cars to go on the road. I'm not interested in a Valkyrie they're just stupid PR stunts. They're not real road cars. The McLaren F1 was the last supercar that had, Gordon Murray had suitcases, toolkits. It was actually a usable supercar. And now the hypercar world has just gone stupid.
Well, I'm very jealous because you've driven an F1. I've been a passenger in an F1 GTR with Derek Bell driving. So that was quite a moment, to be fair. I kind of agree, actually. I think any more than about 300 horsepower in a road car is pretty much of a waste. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a road car that's got 1,000 horsepower. I drove a Ferrari SF90 on track in Italy. That was quite special. But it was raining.
On a track.
It was raining, and I was spinning up the rear wheels in 4th gear down the main straight. It was quite scary. But I got to drive 2 years ago a Jeff Gordon NASCAR, a 2012 Impala NASCAR up the hill at Festival of Speed, 900 horsepower. On the guy who owned it invited me the week before Festival of Speed, and I said, well, I'm not driving it for the first time in front of 80,000 people at Festival of Speed. So we went to Millbrook to shake it down. He'd not driven it before either. He just bought it from America. And it took us an hour to work out how to start it, which was quite amusing. And then we got it going, and then we drove it just in a straight line. There's a 1 mile long straight at Millbrook.
The famous mile straight.
So we drove it up there a couple of times, and then the next time I was driving it, I was sat on the start line at the Festival of Speed at Goodwood. But the guys running the car, they were running all the NASCARs that year. It rocked up, and it had, I think they described the slicks, because it had these old endurance slicks, as big hockey pucks, basically.
Hockey pucks.
It was like
Wooden.
They were the hardest, just no grip at all. Every gear, spinning the rear wheels up. That was the coolest car. No traction control. And a steering wheel like that. I was sat in it, and I'm a big guy. So Jeff Gordon's 6 foot, I think he's 5'7", 5'8", and I'm 6'3". So I'm kind of like this. And I pulled my shoulder getting out of it because the doors are welded up. You have to go out the window through the that was very cool. Yeah.
Do you see the future of motorsport being more exciting now, or do you think it's peaked now?
Depends whether you follow my motorsport guidelines or the crap that's turning up thanks to Formula One. It's going to be... I mean, it worries me intensely because my vision actually, if I look 30 years in the front, my vision, the Tiff Needell vision, you'll all turn up in your stupid little electric autonomous boxes. But the motorsport will be gladiatorial. So you'll have these V12 naturally aspirated, lightweight, drivable racing cars, and they'll be making so much noise, but they'll be appearing as gladiators. But if you follow Formula One's world, you'll end up in a scientific experiment that is just so dull and processional. Because Formula One at the moment is getting dull and processional. And the 2026 regulations really scare me. Nobody's really looking. It's going to be 50% electrical, 50% engine power. And already the aerodynamicists rule. Sadly, aerodynamicists run. We let the aeros come in 79 when ground effect was, ever since ground effect was invented in 79, 80, the world's got worse. Because now the more brilliant, I mean, Adrian Newey is just such a talent. His book, if you ever don't understand Formula One or how to design, read his book, How to Design a Formula One Car. It's as simple as that. Because he explains it in very simple terms. He's looking for little, not venturi, what's the word I said earlier?
Vortices.
Vortices. And he gets a vortice that's going towards a rear wing, and he wants to move it an inch to the left so it goes somewhere else. And that's what makes his cars so brilliant. So this new regulations, he will come out with something that'll be 2 seconds lap quicker than anything else. And the procession will get worse and worse, and it'll just be a parade of aerodynamic brilliance, and won't be car racing. Because I tell everybody, watch IndyCar. If you haven't watched IndyCar, NASCAR, I love NASCAR. I watch NASCAR. You get racing. IndyCar, you get racing. IndyCar, they're all the same car. Like I said earlier with Ollie Behrman in Formula 2, you know, Formula 1 boys poo-poo IndyCar because it's all the same car. But you still need the best engineers to make that simple regulation go faster. But they're closer, they race. And it really worries me, Formula One in the future. I just don't think it's going to be good. Yes, sir.
Tiff, could I ask you, have you ever driven an e-racing car?
Oh, okay. Oh. Oh, sorry. Were you referring to Formula E, sir? I drove one of those things for the Sunday Times, and they haven't asked me back since I wrote my story. Not quite sure what I said, but sadly, I can't talk for both of us here. There might be a better side to this story in a minute for someone that's being paid to go to Tokyo to be paid to talk about Formula E, but I won't.
I wish I was being paid here.
Oh no, I'm sorry, expensive. No, it doesn't work for me. I mean, the trouble is electric power works for Rallycross, the European Rallycross. Unfortunately, they had this huge fire at Liddon Hill last year where the transport of the batteries burst into flames, as they might do. For short, sharp motorsport, Formula E, the electric power works really well. But the trouble with Formula E, anything where you have to lift and coast for half the race, the Formula E car, it drove flat out, could only do about half the race. So you have to keep on lifting and coasting, lifting to regen. And Formula E accept this. They advertise. They don't shy away from this. They accept it's an energy-saving racing formula. But that's not racing for me. As soon as you're energy-saving, you're not racing because your energy-saving is the main. So the main winner is the computer that designs how you run your race. So, you know, in Formula E, if you watch the races, you'll find, you know, Jaguar had the best power plant or Porsche had the best power plant, and they had the best computer program. So it's just not racing, and that's the sad thing. And of course, the sound is important. I think everyone, you know, you can't shy away from the fact that a noisy car wakes you up and makes you excited. And even the fact that with the safer circuits, well, you have to have what you call save the spectators. The further away you go from the track, more and more, you're not getting that excitement. And, you know, I see people sitting in grandstands miles away, you know, watching like a Scalextrics track. You know, you're not involved. There was the most wonderful YouTube, I can't where you can find it ever again. There was a little 6-year-old kid or something on the inside of Silverstone's Beckett's entrance. It's a wonderful YouTube. I should have saved it forever. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
And one motorbike goes past him, you know, 170 miles an hour, and the kid just gets like this. And that's what you need. It's that feeling that you're there, that it brings you alive. It's the most wonderful piece of video. It's a short video. And I always say a test for a formula is if one car going through a corner in front of you excites you, it's a good formula. Whereas all these Formula front-wheel drive boxes, you know, in touring cars now, one car on its own isn't exciting. One car going past you, see the driver driving it with a bit of slight, it needs to excite you. That is my tick box for motorsport entertainment. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've heard that the latest regulations for the World Rally Championship are going to be based on what they call a typical motor car that has been driven by people. In other words, SUV, and that it would be actually based upon an SUV. I read that this week.
I haven't heard of that one. What I did hear that is in the headlines is that Rally Championship has dropped the hybrid
Yes,
so they're the
but now
first.
they're thinking of SUVs.
Well, I don't know about your SUVs. Now you've upset me now. Just when I thought we were making progress. So no, seriously, World Rally Championship is the first championship after everyone's going to have to actually say, oh, we can't deal with don't need this. I mean, they all sort of say, everyone says, you know, that people are having to race electric hybrids to enhance the world's new cars and the future cars. It's not like that anymore. Motorsport doesn't develop the road car. And the manufacturers around the world are spending a fortune, you know, making hybrids, making EVs work. They don't learn anything from Formula One. Formula One's, you know, such a weird, extreme E that they don't learn anything from it. I mean, maybe, you talk about, you know, you're going to Formula E. Have you got a little bit of defence of electric motorsport?
So I'm going to Tokyo E-Prix in a week's time, working with Nissan this year around Formula E. I have asked if I can drive a car. I haven't driven a Formula E car yet, unfortunately. I'd like to have a go. I think that motorsport has other options. So sustainable fuel is a really big one. And we were talking about revival. So revival this year at Goodwood, 100% sustainable fuel, which is a really, really cool message. I think members meeting, it's about 60 or 70% of the grid racing will be on sustainable fuel. So I think that for me keeps the green credentials of motorsport alive, but you still get all the noise, and it's still very, very familiar. It's bloody expensive though, that's the downside, but scale might bring that down. I think there are, hydrogen, fuel cell technologies, those types of things.
But those diesel generators that recharge the Formula E batteries behind the pits.
Well, yeah, the optics maybe not look great on that. So yeah. So I don't know. It's a really. I think there's a bigger thing, not just a motorsport thing. I think the next 2-3 years in the motoring world are going to be really tough for the manufacturers. So the manufacturers have legislation placed upon them by the policymakers of this world that they have no choice but to adhere to. At the moment as we stand, 22% of the vehicles they manufacture must be battery electric. And for every vehicle that they don't comply to that, it's something like a £15,000 fine. So it's a huge thing. And that number, by the way, increases year on year. So I think next year it's 24%, then it goes 28%, and by the time we get to 2035, it's 100%. And that's not them that's dealing with that, that's the policymakers.
Meanwhile, China, that makes the biggest emissions at all, are building lots of little electric boxes that are going to flog to you.
Exactly.
They're going to flood the market.
It's a whole subject to talk about. So I think for us petrol heads, it's a really challenging time. And my challenge in the job I do is there's petrol heads and there's EV heads online, and they are very, very different people, and they don't like each other very much. And there's very tribal camps, but you just try and look at everything. But I would like to drive a Formula E car.
How many people have got an electric car in here? Hands up. Who's got an EV? One, two, only 4.
How many of you had one and got rid of it?
Oh, one's got rid of it. Yeah. I mean, if they suit your life, I'm not anti-EV, because they suit your lifestyle. If they take you from, you've got a plug-in at home, you're off-road parking, you've got a plug maybe at the office, and they're fine. If there's no excitement driving it, it's just driving a washing machine to work and back. It's just a box. And so I'm not anti them if they work for you. What really worries about the whole electric thing is more the lower income people, students, poor people. Because my son, he's still got a 20-year-old Vauxhall Corsa. And he went to the south of France and back with his mates in a £1,000 car. Now, in 20 years' time, there's not going to be a £1,000 equivalent car, because the electric cars that are cheap will only do about 10 miles by the time they're 20 years old. Well, that's not proven yet. The batteries are holding, aren't they? But the point is, the students and the poorer income people won't be able to afford to buy a car almost, because how was the cheapest electric car, entry level?
Low
cheapest
20s probably.
What?
Maybe if something like an MG, you probably get a deal on that low 20s.
Still 20 grand.
But then you get a year-old one maybe.
But what's the battery dying? Nothing yet, or must die eventually, don't they? What's the sort of latest?
We could open up a massive can of worms here.
No,
but
just
I think there's a few. It depends, but it's not the easy answer is it's not nearly as bad as most people think.
But with a 20-year-old,
you're probably looking at maybe 80 to 90% of battery efficiency after, I don't know, 50 to 100,000 miles.
I'm talking 20 years, like my kid's Corsa.
Yeah, but then we'll be maybe on different technology, then different batteries, different.
Yes, so on the left.
I work for a car manufacturer. You mentioned it earlier because Mr. Clarkson rubbish stick in Birmingham. I work for Kia.
Great cars, but they are.
EV's a big subject, and much of what you said is absolutely correct in terms of legislation and sales rates and whatever. But they are holding up surprisingly well. They are surprising us as manufacturers that they aren't actually, their efficiency isn't going down as far.
What's the oldest Kia you've sort of got then that comes in for service?
Well, probably 4 or 5 years old now.
Yeah, but
not very old. But any battery, the pure chemical nature of a lithium-ion battery, even if you mix it with polymer or whatever, will degenerate.
But they're doing all right after 5 years.
They are, yeah. Providing you don't keep rapid charging them and all that all the time, because that's what.
The rapid charging kills them, does it?
Yeah, it helps. Well, it does. It quickens the degeneration of the battery, for sure. But going back to a previous manufacturer I worked for, I used to work for Saab. Now I remember that you used to race in.
I raced Saab turbos, yes.
And I used to stare at that. Yes, I remember you did. I think you used to drive the Kentish Saab.
Yeah, Damon Hill was my teammate one weekend, and I beat the.
Now, Saab was a brand that's obviously disappeared, and I'm sure we'll come back in the name only at some stage because someone will take that brand. What was your recollection of driving in that Saab Turbo Challenge?
Well, the road car was more exciting than the race car. The race car was terrifying. It was never designed to be a racing car, but they were quirky. Jeremy wrote a great column this weekend. He had a latest Citroen. You know, Jeremy was saying he was looking forward to driving the new Citroen, whatever it was. You know, because he remembers, like we all do, a Citroen with these bizarre oddball things with their suspension that went up and down, and Saabs are a bit like that. You're the key in the middle, and you know. And that's what we're losing. We're losing this Indian. And Jeremy just said this new Citroen, because they're now owned by someone else, who's owned by someone else, who's owned by someone else. So, you know.
Now, yeah.
So they're all off the same footprint, they're all off the same floor plan, and we're not getting quirky cars. And that's why I love Saabs, you know. That soft top 900 with the big foldback was a characterful car. And we're losing all of that, sadly. Yes, right in front first.
What did you think of Hendrick's Motorsports Camaro at Le Mans last year?
Wonderful. The noise, you could hear it all.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but Hendricks, this is the Mustang that went to Le Mans as the garage Camaro. Sorry, got the wrong make. Because every year Le Mans has one car. They allow one car into the field that's not with the same regulations as the race cars. So there's always a spare space, and they allowed this Camaro, got it right again, which Jenson Button was in. Jenson was in it, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we love that sort of thing, variety, you know. Because I'm glad they've dropped the LMP2 cars at Le Mans now, because they all look the bloody same. There's 20 of them all going round, you know. They're great to race if you're a driver, but they all look the bloody same. It's this variety, which like GT3, I love the motorsport now, because you've got so much variety. You've got Lamborghinis against Aston Martins and Mercedes, you know, it's great. Variety is what's always needed badly when it comes to touring cars or sports cars. Sorry, just behind you, yes, sir.
Do you think Red Bull could be beaten this year? That's part one of my question. And do you think Hamilton knows more than we know? Maybe Adrian Newey's going to fly?
Yeah, always on the ball, this boy,
we were talking about this. Have you seen the offer that Adrian Newey's had?
Let's do Red Bull first. You mean Red Bull beaten on the track or on the court? Oh, Horner's been doing a bit of courting, that's for sure, eh? Hey, nobody knows about the... it's up again in the press today because the girl's now going to appeal, the girl, what you can say these days. She's appealing against her dismissal. She's not been dismissed, she's been suspended. So there's a lot more Red Bull shenanigans going on. But on the track, no chance they'll be beaten. No chance. Max just cruises around. Another good day. Okay, Easton, good race. Yeah, everybody, congratulations, another race. Lewis going to Ferrari. There's a more. Yes, I've been reading more about that by some great journalists that I know that write better stories than I even imagined. Saying, you know, because Lewis left McLaren because Niki Lauda sort of said, "Hold on, the best with the new engine, Mercedes are ahead of the game," you know, and so. Yeah, so Lewis was drawn. So I think Lewis has been looking at Ferrari. Red Bull are relying on Honda to come up. Is it Honda? No, they're losing Honda. They're losing Honda. Yeah. Ford, yeah. So they've got to build their own engine. So maybe Lewis knows something or thinks. Yeah, hopefully. But it's going to be such a Formula anyway.
And anyway, I mean, they're going to pay him £40 million a year, so he's going to be all right, isn't he?
Yeah. Ped thinks that Newey's going to Ferrari as well.
When Lewis signed, I thought if Adrian Newey isn't at Ferrari next year, I'll be surprised. And by all accounts, they've made an offer that is, they've basically given him a blank check.
But he retired though, won't he? Both of them.
Yeah, he's not.
You seen the video of his oyster yacht he's having built?
Well, that's so the challenge. Because
who's having a yacht? What's he saying? This bloke in the back row. He's having a yacht built.
And when they said, "What are you going to do with your oyster yacht?" He said, "Well, we'll sail it in the Med next year. Maybe the year after we'll do a world cruise."
Yeah. Because I know I saw a thing today about Horner trying to get him more sidelined towards the road car that Red Bull are doing away from the Formula One, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that we are not privy to in that team.
You mean the road car would be a $4 million piece of only been Arab guys. Nobody'd ever see it and drive it. It'd just be bought by Arabs and stuck in a
Well, having
yes at the back, move on.
Getting away from electric and Formula One politics,
Woo.
you made a couple of references early on
for your old adversary, Jan Lammers.
Yeah.
And I know Jan, and he has a son who is doing extremely well, as you probably know.
Yep.
I just wondered if there's a future for the Needell family.
Certainly not. I'm not that stupid. My kids have had golf clubs, tennis rackets, footballs, rugby balls, anything but go-karts. I actually feel sorry for all these. There are so many of these second generations coming through, and I look, you know, Nanini was one of them, and Nanini, I always follow them because I'm watching all these kids coming up. And a lot of, you know, heroes' names, Alessandro Nanini's at his boy, and he went round the world racing, hasn't worked out, you know, and Jan's another one that's put his boy in, and Jan, I like, you know, huge fan of Jan Lammers and stuff, and I'm just so glad I didn't get caught. Luckily, my kid got to be 6'1" tall, the one that wanted to be a racing driver. So I'm sorry, son, you're too tall now. So he's told me Ollie Behrman's 6'2", so that killed me. Oh. I'm in trouble now.
Your son wanted to do it?
Yes, but I did a bit of karting with him. We only about three. Entry level. It's like, you know, £500 or £600 a weekend. You know, if you hire someone, if you get someone to run my kid for the weekend, and I'm there. This is the karting world that you'll all have to, if you want to take a child, this is what you have to do, right? So we hired a cart for about, I think it was about 450 quid for a weekend. So you go for Saturday, and all day long on Saturday from about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, you get, there's like 6 different classes, you get a 10-minute session, so you get about 6 or 7 of them, so you pick the cart up, and I pushed it in, and put it in, and down, it goes for 10 minutes, back it comes. Then Sunday, the race weekend's the same, and you're all there, and everyone's the same, and the little kids are all running around, and you have races and heats. And when you drive home on a Sunday night, I would say that only about 5% of the mothers, fathers, and children have finished the weekend happy. Everyone else is fighting, bent engine, your kid knocked me off, and then when you go every week, I was just in one local kart, so they have a race once a month in the kart track up at Andover, where I was. I forgot the name of the track now. And they're all the same position. They're all pitches. They've all got little pitches of the karts, and dads are there fiddling away with the kart, and the boys are walking around checking their new crash helmet design. But then they go to other tracks, the other 3 weekends, and that's what these fathers and sons do for like every weekend of the year. But only 1 or 2, Jenson Buttons or Lewis Hamilton, are going to come out the top. They all think they're going to make it. And it's a terrible world in a way that unless you come out the top, they'll look back and say, "Whoa, whoa," and they'll be a bit bitter. So it's a funny world, karting. So no, my boys, I kept them away from that. They're spending, the professional kids, they're spending 40 grand on an 8-year-old to do world championships and stuff. I mean, it's just mental.
And even in the lower formulas, the money for a season.
The money. Which brings me, actually, while we talk about the money in karting, the female aspect, which is another thing that's coming up stronger and stronger, which annoys me, because I actually had a go at the bloke of the Sunday Times that said, you know, Formula One biased against women. This same sort of motorsports, it's all motorsport has been biased against women. It's absolutely rubbish, you know. Kay Peter was racing at Brooklands before the war, really successfully, an MG factory car. I raced against Desiree Wilson, who was a really talented South African Formula One driver in British Formula One. The thing about getting women into Formula One is that, as with boys, it's no different. Is that the parents have to spend about £3 million before their child will be even watched by a Grand Prix team. So it's not Formula One or motorsport that's holding women back. It's the parents. Because nobody knows these kids when they're 8 or 9 or 10. And I actually believe that if you asked an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old girl and boy, do you want a go-kart or a pony? This might be sexist. This is sexist.
Bordering that way, but keep going.
I believe that 80% of girls want a pony and 80% of boys want a go-kart. And also there is the mother-father thing. I know when I took my kid race karting, my wife said to me, if he gets injured, it's your fault. And it was quite strong. It wasn't just light. So I believe there is a mother influence against the father. The mother is delusioned if she thinks a pony's safer than a go-kart. Ponies are dangerous. How many times you read about a poor child, you know, those bloody horse things, they got half a brain and they land on top of you and they weigh 2 tons. So I'd steer clear of horses. So it is an Enid Blyton thing. It is a social thing. But literally, women will get to Formula One only when the parents find that money or their business associates to sponsor their child to go up those ladders. We're not holding women back at all. And as soon as a woman, there's a go, I've been campaigning on my podcast, Love Cars on the Grid, you can check them out, with Dorian Pound. We've noticed Dorian Pound, this French girl, 20-year-old, she's done really well in GT3, driving a Lamborghini. She's now won the first 2 FIA Formula One things. She could be the female that makes it to Formula One, but she's now got to go against Formula 3. She can't stay in women only. She's now got to go out into Formula 3 and out into Formula 2. It's this huge pyramid. We're not holding women back. It's gone quiet now.
No, well said. It's good.
Any women want to take me up on that? Give me a punch or something? I'll take a slap. Yeah. Oh, yes, sir.
No, I would agree with you on that.
Oh, that's all right. Got away with that one.
I'm actually involved in grassroots motorsport, hill climbs, sprints, and there are quite a number of very talented women who actually get to the top in those sports.
Well, drag racing, they can win a world championship drag racing.
Again, that's another one.
And what's the most important skill in drag racing? How quickly you can react. Duck. So it is, but it is, I mean, you know, Jamie Chadwick's very good, but she's not good enough. This is the fact. The cruel fact that Formula One is a meritocracy. And we can't just push people up because they're from a certain part of society. They've got to earn their place. And it's a really, 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 really tough mountain to climb. Yes, sir.
Second question. I think women are just too cautious because they make up to be in Formula One and to win.
Oof. Well, sir, you're braver than me. Next question. Okay, white t-shirt.
Well, I would mention Michelle Mouton.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But never raced against anyone, so you know.
Ballsy. That's what I'm just going to say.
Ballsy was ballsy. Yeah. You can't use that word anymore now, though. World's so complicated, isn't it?
A silly question for you. You've got to enter Goodwood in a Jaguar D-Type, but you have to pick a driver to partner you from your presenters that you've worked with.
Oh,
well, it's easy. It's me.
It's Ped.
I wish.
Oh, Vicky Butler Henderson. Vicky. Yeah. Vix.
See, that rescues us from the previous question. That's excellent. Good. Well done. Next question. Yeah, gentleman with the glasses.
You've both had a lot of success in motoring journalism. You've talked about YouTube a lot. Where do you think we'll be getting our information in 20 years' time?
It'll all be on YouTube with Ped.
I wish.
I'll be on my coffee and go, Ped, shut up about those stupid electric cars, they're a piece of but he'll still be alive in 20 years' time, saying they're wonderful.
So my answer, first of all, I'm not a journalist. And I'm always make sure I say I'm not a journalist. I am just a normal person who 8 years ago picked up a camera. I love cars all my life, and I just make films about cars. But that I just give an honest opinion of a normal person. But I think in terms of where it'll be in 20 years, I don't know 20 years because that's a long time in the world of technology. I think where we sit currently, most people's buying decision when they're thinking of a new car, one of the first places they will look is online and go on YouTube. And whether that's they get a proper journalist like a Chris Harris or a Henry Catchpole, or whether they look at someone like me, that's their call. I think most people look at a balance of those things. And I think if you look at the scary thing, actually, if you look at the viewership of the YouTubers that you might look at and compare that with magazine journalism, even big titles like Evo or Autocar, a successful video on my channel will have more views than the readership of Evo. So I think it's a really interesting one. I think I would hope to think magazines carry on, but I think they've got big challenges in terms of where they get their money from, because advertising spend is far more trackable and traceable in an online environment. So I think whether it will be YouTube or something else, I don't think it will be short format content like Instagram and and those types of things. I don't worry about TikTok because my audience demographic isn't on TikTok.
Oh, isn't it?
No. There's only one YouTuber older than me, and that's Harry Metcalf. Maybe you actually. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a YouTuber.
So yeah, that would be my view. I think YouTube plays an important part of where you might find your information. But don't really
I don't think TV shows. I mean, because the trouble is that some modern journalists go on these launches now, and they're almost crying because, well, what can you say about this latest electric box?
That's a big worry.
What range has it got? How much does it cost? What little funny things has it got, like a fart cushion in a Tesla? And that's it. They're not excited. There's no driving.
It's a big challenge as someone who has to try and explain. They're all shared platforms, very similar to Drive. The big challenge between TV and YouTube, which is so you've got your new TV show.
We love cars on the road. We're still trying to make fun, but we'd go looking at older cars rather than the latest stuff.
Because you make a show and it takes 18 months before it hits the TV channel. I'll go on a drive or a launch. I can have my video live the next day. So it's far more up to date, far more reactive. So that's where YouTube wins over TV. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yes, sir.
The future of electric motors going into classic cars. Well, do you think there is a future because they start?
Only if those spend £30,000 putting electric motors into classic, beautiful cars. £30,000 in a Morris 1000.
That's a cheap one, mate. You need to sharpen your pencil a bit there.
I mean,
I was up at the NEC a couple of years back, and we went to pick up these batteries to see what they were like, and they were going to put them in one of the cars. And then I was thinking, they couldn't even lift it. So when they put them in the cars, I'm just thinking that, like, I've got a Triumph Spitfire, so the chassis is...
Do not put an electric engine in your Triumph Spitfire.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you put that into that car...
It's dangerous. Yeah, the brakes don't work, the chassis is not ready for it.
That's it. But that's what they're trying to do.
But, it'll spin the wheels with all the power. Look at me on my YouTube channel spinning the wheels of my Triumph Spitfire with my electric motors.
No, I'm not.
Not you, obviously. I'm not talking about
So having done 2 series of Vintage Voltage where we take classic cars and put electric drivetrains in them, I'm probably the guy to answer that question.
So what about these cars you've ruined putting electric motors in them? Do you feel guilty at all?
I'm not for it.
No. No. So
I just want to know what,
So for most conversions are weight neutral or just weight positive.
Weight neutral?
Yeah.
Well, take a little engine out, you put them batteries in
Yeah.
the same weight?
Engine and petrol tank. Yeah.
All right, continue your defence.
Yeah, so then when you take the weight out, because the battery is a static piece of weight, it's easier to weight balance the car. So if you look at something like a 911, you've got the engine at the back, fuel tank at the front, fuel burns off, fuel tank gets lighter, characteristics of the car change. Right.
So don't go on too much.
Yeah. Anyway,
just get to the basics.
So all I would say is drive one. I've driven plenty of classic cars that have been converted to electric power.
Ruined.
Some no. So Carman gear, never has a car been made that looks so fast but is so slow. But an electric converted Carman gear, amazing thing to drive.
If the Carman gear was designed to be slow, it should stay slow.
Yeah.
But £30,000.
So
DeLorean.
A DeLorean?
Rubbish car.
If it was designed to be a rubbish car, it should stay a rubbish car.
The ones that trigger people is my mate Moggy, who doesn't. So he's just done 3 Ferrari Testarossas. That really upset people. Yeah. But I have driven a Ferrari 308 electric converted. But that conversion
was... Did you spin the wheels and say, oh, look at all the power it's got?
450 horsepower. That conversion was 65 grand. So.
65.
Yeah, so a classic Mini with a 300 horsepower Tesla drivetrain in the front.
Let's get the old Austin 7 out
do that.
there. Yeah. Let's give it some woof.
So I can see I'm not going to win people over. All I would say is that a lot of the guys that do those conversions have either had the car a long time, and I'm maybe talking to the wrong audience here, but owning a classic car for many is a lovely thought, but the practicalities of it breaking down a lot and not being reliable and those types of things, for a lot of people, that's too much. So a lot of those people who convert cars to classics, the guy I know who did the DeLorean, he uses that car as his daily to commute into work in Dublin, and it works every day. It doesn't have to worry about it breaking down, and that's why he did it. And at the end of the day, it's their car. They can kind of do what they like with it.
Do you know, if a fuse goes, right, they're not qualified, they've got to shut it down, go through a computer, go on the course, actually, get the computers to actually stop the car, you know, cut it out, because otherwise they're going to fry.
Yeah.
You know, no one can work.
Have you tried working on a modern day car that has a fuse go? Because that's exactly the same. It's no different whatsoever.
Don't
Yeah.
upset you. It sounds a bit Welsh to me.
Yeah, but it's only because he watched the rugby today. He's had a bad day.
He's had a bad day.
Yeah, really bad day.
He's had a
Moving
bad
on. Next
day.
question. Over here, look.
What do you think of hydrogen as being the fuel of the future?
No idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Simple answer. There's something like 25% of transportation use cases that cannot be done by battery electric. Transportation, heavy haulage, agriculture, and hydrogen fuel cells are weight neutral, if not weight negative. And they are, the biggest challenge with hydrogen is infrastructure, as I think we all know. I've driven a hydrogen car, they're amazing things, but infrastructure is a big problem. But until we ramp up...
Excuse me, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I get confused. A hydrogen car can run an internal combustion engine.
You can do hydrogen in two ways, a fuel cell
Yeah, which then goes electric.
or
motors.
hydrogen combustion.
So which is the way that's most promising? Hydrogen combustion or
A
hydrogen
bit of, so for the really big heavy transport, it would be something like a hydrogen fuel cell.
For a car, it's
So
hydrogen.
you look at something like a Tesla Cybertruck, right? So not the
I
Cybertruck, sorry, the
looked
Semi.
at one, I
No,
followed
not
one,
the Cybertruck, the Semi, the big HGV, the articulated HGV.
Oh,
Okay. So in one of those, the battery pack in one of those weighs 8,000 pounds, and there's two of them, right? So if you're an Eddie Stobart and you've got a 40-ton heavy haulage
You can't go
HGV,
pounds and tons. How many tons? How many 8,000
that's about 5 tons. So let's say 10 tons of battery pack. Okay. So if you're an Eddie Stobart with a 40-ton articulated lorry, it's probably only the last 500 kilos that makes you any money. Okay. So when you start running those, the big challenge is it just doesn't work. And people go, oh yeah, but Pepsi Cola are running the Tesla Semi and Pepsi used the Tesla Semi in America to transport crisps. Because if they use it to transport Pepsi, the payload's too heavy and the numbers don't work.
Right, you're banned from any more questions because that was really boring. All right? Sorry, Cliff.
Moving on, sorry.
Anything else more exciting before we all
Just
go
don't
home?
ask me any questions. Just ask him about cool cars and racing and stuff.
Any more for any more? What time are we
They want to go home, don't they?
I don't know. They look like they want to go home because we finished. They've got no more questions.
One more question at the back. Should we make this the last one, do you reckon? What do you
We've
reckon?
got one at the front.
Well,
as
we've
well.
got two more questions. There we go.
Think of it. If you want a question, you've got to start thinking now. Otherwise,
Having thrown your BMW side straight in front of me at Truxton, can you tell me how many tyres you go through in a week?
well, we go a set a day. How much? About £1,000 a day, which is why we have to charge so much money, so I can go round sideways all the time long. Yeah, the rear tyres do 20 runs, 3 laps. That's 20 times 3, 60 laps times 2.5. That's but about 150 miles. My rear tyres, and then I need new ones. But that's all the fun of being a petrol head, isn't it? That's what it's all about.
Polar bears. Right, so...
Was there one more down the front? Have you given
really
up?
Quick one. You know that Top Gear you said you filmed? Do you reckon it will ever go out on TV?
No, my Top Gear film, my return to Top Gear, which would have made me famous again, is on the cutting room floor.
You will never see Top Gear on telly
You
again.
can't end the day on a negative. Ask something else.
One more positive question, then we're going to stop.
Oh yes, come on.
What are you looking forward to most at this point in time? What do you want?
Me buying him a pint in about half an hour's time at the hotel.
I'm depressed again. That wasn't positive. What is there to look forward to in this battery-powered autonomous?
Yeah, the new
I
Renault
was in
5.
San Francisco last week. I did this little trip with the missus. My missus dragged me away after eventually watched the tennis in some desert bat and ball. Anyway, And San Francisco is full of these autonomous taxis. I was quite surprised how many autonomous taxis were going up and down. But they only do about 25 miles an hour, so they can't really hit anything too much. But he depressed me again. He's depressed me again. Where was the
No, you're looking forward
Where's
to you're looking forward to
uplifting
members
question?
meeting, racing at members meeting. You got to be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the members meeting in a Mustang.
Yeah.
V8.
Rah!
Petrol power. That's
Hey!
it. Okay.
Fully lit sideways.
Excuse me, it falls to me to give the vote of thanks. I would like to just say, Tiff, I saw you racing in Macau.
Wonderful. What a track that
I
is.
don't know whether anybody else saw it, but I've got to confess, I never saw the end of it. The client that had taken me wanted me to go and fix the traffic lights. I never saw the end. Did you win? Where did you go?
Did I?
Well, I think that summed it up. I would like to say, Tiff, Peter, thank you very, very much for such an enjoyable, entertaining and informative evening.
Yes.
We've actually gone into the night. Through Peter's questions, we've actually got into the mind of Tiff. Now, I think that is pretty incredible, because he doesn't normally say much about himself, so I'm told. But thank you both very, very much indeed, and thank you for such an enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, mate. Do the bow.
Do the bow.